So I'm here today and I'm talking to Aaron Switzer. And our subject today is relationship needs. Aaron is a friend, and I have learned so many things from him. And for many years, Aaron worked as a professional coach and a pastoral counselor. He worked with the homeless people in Dallas. And again, he spent many years with them. He was also the director of the Agape Project at Dallas Theological Seminary, which is how we got to meet. And he continues to work at Dallas Seminary. Hey, Aaron.
Hey, Shalini.
Aaron, thank you for giving us your time. And also thank you for helping me learn so much about relationship needs, because I learned all of that really from you. So thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me. And I always enjoy things that we can collaborate on together. So I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. So Aaron, jumping right in, this is our conversation on Bible at work. How do we apply what we have learned in scriptures at work? And definitely in things that we're learning from research and knowledge that we're gaining from the outside in the world, from science and arts, and just understanding how it flows through our biblical lens. So I'll start first, and I'll jump right into the question.
Okay.
So, many years ago, I learned some things about business, management, marketing, all of that. So one of the things that I have learned is that we do need to feel good about ourselves, to have our productivity at optimal level for our personal well-being. We do need to feel connected with others. And, your research is all about relationship needs. And, we also need to feel that we are capable of doing something that we're working on, that we can finish it, that it's not an endless cycle of nothing.
Right.
And want to have freedom to do it. We want to have exercise our free will in pursuing what we want to pursue and not be coerced into doing anything. And then you introduced me to relationship needs. While I was, looking into all of this, you introduced me to relationship needs. So what are relationship needs in the workplace? Because in the workplace, we just focus on the other things, do I have the freedom to work? Am I fulfilled in my work? But you brought in relationship needs. What are relationship needs? And is this the need for us to feel connected with others, or is it more?
It's a great question. It really goes back to our design. We are designed by God with relational needs. And sometimes when we think of the word need, especially if we're thinking about something related to work, well, you want employees who are smart and who have energy and who have education and drive and integrity and things like that. And sometimes we perceive need so much in a negative light. It's almost like I really want people working for me that don't need anything, that they're just going to produce. I don't want to have to spend my time, taking care of people. I want people working for me that are actually going to get the job done and, so we can make money, whatever we're trying to do, we can accomplish the task. And, obviously productivity is important, everything like that. But we have to recognize just who we are as people. The needs are there, and they're not there just because sometimes people are weak or they're struggling because, for whatever reason, including even bad decisions they might have made. There is such a thing as us just having needs by design. And so when we're talking about what does that mean in the workplace, we have to recognize what motivates employees and coworkers, what drives their behavior. And if we can acknowledge and recognize and to some measure meet relational needs, in the workplace that's going to directly impact the motivation of those that we work with, which in turn will increase productivity and things like that. So it is an additional investment caring for those with whom you work to do that and to do that well. Does take intentionality, it takes time, it might even take resources. But if you can build up those who you work with, I mean, that's just good leadership. And so knowing that there is such a thing as relational needs can really help with that. So that's kind of how they fit together. You asked specifically what are relational needs, right? So yes, our relational needs, we are designed by God with these needs. So it's not just like that we're weak. This is quite literally how we're made. And we can see that pretty clearly in the narrative of Scripture. But it's what it really amounts to is, if I am loving my neighbor in the way that I'm instructed to, then I'm going to treat them certain ways. And I'm also going to avoid treating them certain ways that are loving and not loving. But we can be more specific than that. I can love somebody by accepting them, by showing them affection, by giving them appreciation and approval and things like that. So what relational needs are is it's understanding how God made us in a specific way in terms of how we can receive and give love to one another in a way that's ultimately very motivating and fulfilling.
This is so interesting because you said that we have relational needs by design. We're wired for that. And yes, I agree with you that meeting those needs would help. But you also said that when we talk about needs, we think about that person as being weak or needy, but that's not true. We have needs by design to be strong, but we still have relational needs.
That's right.
And then you said something really interesting. Meeting our relational needs helps us to give and receive love. And, many months ago when you were talking to me, that was the first time you opened my eyes to this idea of receiving love.
Mm.
You just think about giving love, but receiving love. So fulfilling relationship needs helps us to receive love and not just to give love, to be fulfilled our relationship needs.
That's right. If I understand my design and I can recognize, even as a leader, I mean, we can talk about this as friends, or we can talk about this as, who is your spouse, or, I mean, you can really analyze any kind of relationship through this lens, and it's very helpful. But even like, let's say that I would be in a position of leadership in the workplace, for example. Well, one of the ways that I could lead very effectively is to recognize that not only are those who work for me, let's say, or even with me as colleagues, that they have needs by design, and I would do well to try to, at least to some extent, meet those. But what about me? Am I Superman with no needs? And sometimes leaders kind of get that impression, and that never goes well. I mean, that's a whole nother conversation about burnout, right? But what about me? Can I be vulnerable to let people know that I also am somebody with needs? And is there space in the culture that I create in the workplace for everybody to be in the same boat? It's an equalizer. We all have relational needs. And, there's certain types of behaviors that are appropriate work and some that are not. And these are not necessarily my closest relationships. So I don't expect attention or affection or even comfort in the workplace in the same way that I would at home in my relationship with my wife. But I can, to some degree, have those needs recognized and met at work. And then for me personally, I have to know what are my needs and how do I appropriately ask others to respond to that, because that'll help my motivation. So yes, absolutely. Giving and receiving is definitely part of the conversation.
So going on to the next question.
Hmm.
You mentioned that, very briefly, our relational needs have an impact on our productivity. Would you unpack that a little bit more as to, or give us an example how meeting relational needs changes productivity in the workplace?
Okay. Yeah, that's a great question. And I'll take this opportunity to introduce the theorist that this comes from, that I learned it from. It's a man named David Ferguson, and so he works in Texas. He's based out of Austin. He's the one who came up with it's called intimacy therapy, but it's not only used in therapeutic settings. It's also used more broadly. It's applied in coaching, a lot of areas. And so he has an organization and he offices there, and I might reference him more later. But to answer your question, I want to reference his theory in particular. There's actually we go ahead and do a book too. Intimate Encounters is a book that is still available on their website. They're still selling it. It's actually designed for couples counseling, but there's a lot of principles that you can apply in a number of places. And in this particular book, he has one of the things that he articulates is kind of a sequence of events that happens where hypothetically needs are met versus needs are not met. So if I'm in a situation and let's say I have a need for attention, okay, all of us do. These are all universal. A question you might ask me later would be about specific needs and does everybody have every need? And I think we do, but I might need attention more than, and for you something different might be at the top of your list. But let's go with attention just as a good example. And so attention would be am I important enough for people to be interested to see what I'm doing and to listen to me and to kind of enter my world when I'm talking and to see things from my point of view. If I'm constantly ignored when I try to do something at work, every time I do that, it sort of takes another emotional hit. And over time, I can begin to say, it can affect my thinking, and I can begin to say, I'm not important here. Nobody cares what I think. I try to I make suggestions. Nobody cares. So I'm not important here. Or I might even take it further and make it more personal. And especially if I already have some shame going on inside of me and go, I don't matter at all. I literally don't matter. So now it's affected my thinking. Well, now it's going to affect my emotions, right? So now I'm starting to feel a lot of pretty unpleasant emotions. So I might be carrying around sadness, or if I don't know how to cope with that and I'm suppressing it, I might feel depressed. I might feel angry. Well, then now it's going to start affecting my behavior. It's like, I don't care. If I don't matter and I don't feel like I'm getting any joy out of the job, then why should I bother? What difference does it make? And so now it's affecting my behavior and I'm demotivated. And then maybe I take it a step further and I just stop trying at work, or maybe I just quit. I leave projects half done and I don't try. So that would be obviously at any point along the way, an individual could use their resilience, their grits, their conscience, and say, well, despite this, I'm still going to do a good job. And maybe that helps to balance out ultimately what they choose to do in their behavior. But still, their motivation is they're having to do all the work to figure out how to generate the drive to continue, right? So it's a kind of a suffering, it's a kind of aloneness. And then the exact opposite is true. Let's say you have a boss who is aware of what relational needs are and has taken the time to help identify among those he works with what their relational needs are. And so the boss comes along and goes, oh, there's Aaron. Let me think. Aaron has a need for attention. So let me just go and ask him some questions about what he thinks about stuff. And then let me express interest while he's talking. Well, if he does that, that's going to meet my need for attention to some extent. I'm going to go, wow, my boss actually cares what I think. I'm important here. That feels pretty good. I feel I'm feeling this is joyful. I feel energized. Man, okay, well, let me see what else can I do, since people actually care about what I think. I've got some other ideas. Maybe I'll share those as well. So now all of a sudden you have this employee that's more naturally motivated and is voluntarily bringing their best work. Once again, someone could, through their conscience and resilience and grit, just choose to be that person. And I would argue that they should, because we're to work unto the Lord. But there's this other issue of, you can affect people's motivation positively or negatively to create an environment where they actually voluntarily want to do stuff, and then that can elevate everything, including productivity. So that's how I see that playing out. I mean, in all areas of life, you could say the same thing about other relationships, but I see it working out along those lines in the workplace.
Yes, it's very interesting what you said, because when you said that, a leader taking time intentionally to come and recognize, so there's cognitive work going on within the leader or the boss, and coming and saying, I would like to know more about what you're doing, or saying, I notice what you're doing and I like it.
Yeah.
It actually, to me, the first thought that came was, it would widen that person's creativity to think even more about what else can I do, which is what you said, what else can I do? Which means yes, that's very interesting. So just a very quick follow-up, Aiden, because we move in a continuum. So this is just a regular, normal, relatively healthy to maybe healthy workplace where someone is intentionally thinking, how do I serve my team members, and is training themselves to work in it. You said, am I important enough is a question that someone might ask. The other end of that, where the workplace might become toxic, is where someone thinks, I am important, you better serve my needs.
Sure.
Right? Or I deserve attention, you need to give me attention.
Yeah.
So what do you do when you have someone like that on your team, instead of someone who says, am I important enough, to someone who says, I am important?
What I might try to see, well, how toxic is this person? I don't know yet. Healthy relationships where I can respectfully ask for attention to be met. If I have a need for attention, I'm driven to get that need met.